A scream cut the quiet like a knife. Steam rose in a white cloud. Boiling water splashed over the thin arms of an old woman in a wheelchair, and the smell of burned skin filled the air. A crystal pot lid clanged across the marble floor. A woman in a white silk nightgown stood over the stove, her face hard, her hand still tipping the pot. And then the front doors blew open. A man in a black suit, suitcase still in hand, froze in the doorway, wind catching the curtains. "Nicole, what are you doing?" he said, his voice breaking. "That's my mother." The pot slipped from Nicole's hand and shattered. The old woman didn't scream again, she just looked at her son with eyes that held more sorrow than pain. If you are just joining, this is a true moral story you must see through to the end. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments right now, and if you love your mom, type "Thank you, Mom." Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so more people learn from this lesson. Caleb Reed moved before his mind caught up. He slid across the wet tile on his knees, wrapped his suit jacket around his mother's forearms, and whispered, "Mom, I'm here, I'm here." His mother, Martha, breathed in short, tight gasps. "It's okay, Mama, I've got you," he said, while his eyes shot up to the cook, to the maid, to the driver in the doorway, everyone frozen in shock. "Towels, cool water, not ice, now," he ordered. The staff sprang to life. Nicole took a step back, her lips parted as if to speak, then pressed them into a hard line. Caleb looked up at her once, and in that look lived a storm. 2 minutes later, white cloths soaked in cool water lay over Martha's arms, and the head of security was on the phone calling an ambulance. Caleb kept talking so his mother would not drift away. "Do you hear me, Mom? It's me, it's Caleb." Martha blinked slowly. "Son," she whispered, "it's all right." Caleb swallowed a lump of grief and anger. It was not all right, not even close. If you saw only this moment, the man in a suit kneeling on a wet kitchen floor in his mansion in Lekki, Lagos, you might think the story began here. But the fire in this room started long before the stove was ever turned on. Caleb had been born in the thick heat of a Lagos afternoon to a woman who never learned how to rest. Martha sold smoked fish on long days, pushing a wooden cart along busy streets, her hands black with charcoal, her smile big anyway. She raised Caleb alone. When other kids got new toys, Caleb got extra chores. When other kids went on holiday, Caleb learned how to fix broken fans and put neat numbers in school books. He grew tall and serious. He watched his mother's shoulders grow tired before he turned 12. One rainy day, a truck's horn blared, tires slid, and Martha, running across a street with a basket of yams, got knocked sideways. She survived. Her legs did not. A stroke came later, and the chair with wheels became part of their home. Pain can make people hard. It made Martha soft. She would rub Caleb's head and say, "Son, don't let success change your heart. Let it change your hands so you can help more people." Caleb took those words and built a life around them. Brilliant at numbers, he won a scholarship, learned energy trading, and came home with ideas bigger than the sky. Oil, gas, logistics, pipelines, he built companies that worked. Deals shook hands with bigger deals. Money grew. He bought land and glass towers, then took his mother out of their one-room apartment and into a house with lights that never flickered when the power went out. He made a promise the day he rolled her wheelchair onto the balcony of the new mansion and pointed to the ocean. "You won't suffer again, Mom," he said, "not while I breathe." The first time he saw Nicole was not in a kitchen but at a charity gala. Music from a live band floated over a rooftop pool. Nicole walked in glowing like a city after rain. She was kind at first glance, soft voice, pretty smile, quick to ask about his mother when she heard he didn't bring a date because he had to drive someone to the clinic. "You sound like a good son," she said. He liked that. She said she ran a small fashion label. They talked for hours. She made him laugh, and he liked himself when he laughed. He did not notice the way she looked at the room, counting the rich people with her eyes. Some people fall in love fast. Caleb did. He brought Nicole to meet his mother in a simple dress and flats, and Nicole knelt by the wheelchair and said, "I've heard so much about you." Martha squeezed her hand and smiled back. In those days, the house felt full. New curtains, new laughter, new plans. There were flowers everywhere. There were also 3 small things that looked like nothing. First, Martha's nurse left, then the cook left, then the old driver left. "Better staff will come," Nicole said. "We need people who understand class." Caleb was at the office when interviews happened. He did not see the way Nicole rolled her eyes when Martha asked for the old driver by name, or how she told the new nurse, "Madam does not need sweets, she needs discipline." The second year of the marriage brought more distance than delight. It started small. "Do we have to bring the wheelchair to the dining table?" Nicole asked one night, smiling as if it were a joke. "The chair leaves marks on the tile." Another night, "Your cousin visited again." "Caleb, this house is not a community center." Then, "Your mom needs a spa day. Please let the staff handle her. You work too much to be her nurse." On his busiest days, when pipeline contracts and freight schedules ate up the sun and half the night, those words sounded like care. On quiet nights, they sounded like walls. Martha faced those walls with the same gentle face she gave to storms. "I know what I know," she said warmly. "A good wife proves herself in a kitchen, not with soup or stew but with kindness." She asked for nothing except company and a radio that played softly in the afternoons. She cooked sometimes to feel useful, old hands steady on the wooden spoon. She never complained when Nicole moved her from the window to a corner, but she watched, and she listened. What she heard made her pray more than she spoke. One morning, a document slid under Martha's tea saucer. "Mom," Nicole said, using the word too sweet, "Caleb wants you to sign this. It's just a trust update. It gives me authority to manage certain shares if he travels. It's safer for the company." Martha held the paper, squinted, and looked up. "My son didn't tell me," she said quietly. Nicole laughed and touched her shoulder. "He's on a call. He asked me to help." Martha smiled with her lips and kept her eyes kind. She folded the paper and placed it under her pillow. That night when Caleb came home, she asked, "Son, what is this?" He stared at it as if he had never seen it. "I didn't send this," he said slowly. He confronted Nicole in their room. Nicole cried and said the lawyers sent it for review and she misunderstood. "I would never go around you," she said. "I only wanted to help." She hugged him. He hugged her back but felt something he had not felt before, a small, cold crack. When Caleb traveled to Dubai for a week of meetings, the house changed temperature. The radio was turned off. The nurse got 2 days off to rest. The cook took a sudden trip to see family. The driver slept in the quarters out back. The mansion felt empty and wide. Martha rolled herself to the kitchen in the late afternoon and opened the pantry to make tea. Nicole stepped in barefoot, phone in hand, silk nightgown trailing like a cloud. She stared at the old woman's hands on the stove. "Why are you always in here?" she asked, voice flat. "I told the staff no cooking. You make the house smell like smoke." Martha set the kettle down gently. "I am making tea," she said. "Do you want some?" Nicole didn't answer. She set her phone face down on the island and walked to the pot, fingers closing over the handle. "You know what I want," she said softly. "I want you to sign those papers so I can run this place properly." Martha's eyes stayed kind, but her mouth trembled. "No," she said. "My son decides, not you." Nicole's nostrils flared. "Your son listens to you like a little boy," she whispered, her voice sharp now. "You hold him back, you hold me back. I am this family now." She lifted the pot, steam ghosting her face. "Move your hands," she said. Martha did not move. "I'm making tea," she said again like a prayer. The kitchen clock ticked, and then everything happened fast. The front doors flew open, the wind slammed long curtains, and Caleb's voice filled the room. After that, it was cold water, towels, shouting, orders, and silence. That is where we began. The ambulance siren grew loud as it turned onto the street outside. The head of security, a heavy-set man named Jonah, hovered near the door with the driver behind him. "Sir," Jonah said, "do you want me to call the police?" Caleb's jaw tightened. He looked at Nicole's bare feet on the wet tile, at the red marks crawling up his mother's arms under the white cloths, at the pot shards glinting on the floor. "Yes," he said, voice calm as stone. "Call them, now." Nicole's head snapped toward him. "Caleb, wait, it was an accident," she said. She grabbed the pot. "I tried to pull it away, she tipped it." Her words stumbled over each other like shoes on ice. Caleb glanced at the stove. His eyes touched a small black dome near the top cabinet and moved away so fast no one else noticed. "Save your story," he said softly. "Tell it to the right people." The paramedics came in with measured steps and warm voices, checking Martha's breathing, lifting her with careful hands, wrapping her arms in clean dressings. "We have to go," one said to Caleb. Now, Caleb stood, pressing a kiss to his mother's forehead. "I'm riding with you," he told the paramedic. Then to Jonah, "Seal the house, no one in or out, phones collected at the door. Every camera, download the last 12 hours, back it up twice." Jonah nodded once and started giving orders. Staff moved, heads down, eyes wide. "Caleb," Nicole said, stepping close, lowering her voice. "Please don't make a scene, your mother will be fine. I was boiling water for tea, she moved too close. You know she likes to help, it was a mistake." Caleb turned his head slowly, almost curious at the calm in his own voice. "A mistake," he said. "You tried to make my mother sign a transfer when I was away. Was that a mistake too?" Nicole blinked fast, shoulders stiffening. "I was following instructions from the lawyers," she said. "You travel so much, I thought." Caleb raised a hand and she stopped. "Not one more word," he said. "Get your phone." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because you're coming with me," he said. "You will ride in the ambulance with us. You will sit in that hospital all night, and you will not leave until my mother sleeps. Understood?" The firmness in his voice made even Jonah glance up. Nicole opened her mouth, closed it, nodded, and reached for her phone. They wheeled Martha out. The night outside was warm, the air thick with the heavy smell of rain on hot stone. Blue lights flashed at the estate gate where a patrol car waited. The paramedics slid Martha in. Caleb climbed in beside her. Nicole hesitated at the door of the ambulance, eyeing the flashing police lights, then climbed in too, sitting on the small bench opposite. The doors slammed and the ambulance surged forward. Inside, the siren was softer, a dull cry behind thin metal walls. Martha's eyes were closed. The paramedic murmured to her, checking the dressings again. Caleb didn't look at Nicole. He stared at his mother's face and whispered, "I'm here." A minute passed, two, then a whisper dry as paper. "Son." Martha's eyelids fluttered. Caleb leaned close. "I'm here, Mom," he said. "Don't speak." She swallowed. "Listen," she breathed. "Don't be angry, be wise." Caleb blinked hard. "I will, Mom." Her fingers moved weakly under the blanket, searching for his hand. He held them. "There's a folder," she whispered. "In the blue box in your safe, read it." Caleb stroked her hand. Okay, he said. After the doctors see you, she nodded once barely. A tear ran into her hair. I forgive her, she said, but you must do what is right. The ambulance bumped over a speed hump. Nicole stared at her knees. When she looked up, she tried a small, careful smile. Caleb, you know your mom, she always forgives. She knows I would never. Stop, he said without looking. The siren dropped as they turned into the hospital drive. Nurses waited with a bed, doors opened, bright lights spilled in. Sir, we'll take her, a nurse said, and they did, rolling Martha through sliding doors, voices quick and kind. Caleb touched his mother's forehead as she passed and then followed, his shoes squeaking on the floor. Hours can stretch and collapse inside a hospital. This one stretched long and thin. Burn specialists arrived, paperwork got signed, dressings were changed with careful, gentle hands. A doctor with silver hair came out at last. Her burns are deep but mostly on the forearms, he said. Painful, yes, dangerous, not like face or chest. We'll need to watch for infection. She needs rest, quiet, and people who care. Caleb nodded silently. Can I see her? She's sleeping, the doctor said. In the morning, Caleb thanked him and sat down in a plastic chair, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Nicole sat across the waiting room, arms wrapped around herself, eyes on him like a question she could not answer. Near midnight, Jonah sent a text. House secured, police interviewed staff, camera footage backed up, do you want me to bring it? Caleb texted back, no, send to my phone, also to Mr. Akin's office, and one more copy to the offsite server. 2 minutes later, a file appeared on his screen, Kitchen Cam 1823H. Caleb glanced toward Nicole, who had started to stand, then sat at his right side, trying to smile. Do you want coffee? She asked. He shook his head. No. He tapped the file, it opened. The video started at 6:01 p.m. The camera looked down from high in a corner, catching the stove, the island, the sink, and half the doorway. The kitchen was empty at first. Then Martha rolled in, slow and careful, her robe tied in a soft knot. She set a kettle, checked the flame, and leaned back. 30 seconds later, Nicole walked in, phone in hand, hair loose. She did not look surprised to see the kettle on the burner. She looked annoyed. They spoke. There was no sound, only their faces and hands. Nicole pointed at the stove. Martha shook her head. Nicole set her phone face down. She picked up the pot. Caleb watched his wife's face in the blue glow of the hospital lights. He watched the way her mouth moved, sharper now like a knife. He watched the pot tilt, steam curling up, watched the way Nicole leaned forward, not away. He watched his mother's hands stay where they were, steady and sure, and then he watched the water fall. Caleb did not look away. He watched himself burst into the frame 9 seconds later. He watched the aftermath unravel in fast motion. He watched until the screen went black. He did not speak for a full minute. When he did, his voice was so calm that Nicole flinched. Do you know what I see? He asked. Nicole licked her lips. An accident, she said quickly. You were not here. You don't know what she said to me, how she grabbed the pot, how... I see you, Caleb said, eyes on the screen, not on her. I see what you chose. Nicole folded her arms as if the room had grown cold. You can't destroy our life over a mistake, she whispered. Think about your name, your company, the press. Think about investors. If this goes public, it ruins everything. Caleb turned his head now. His eyes were clear. You poured boiling water on my mother, he said softly. And your first thought is the press, Nicole's jaw tight. My first thought is you, she said. You will lose everything we built. People hate scandal. They will say you let your mother run your home. They will say you married a monster. They will say, enough, he said. His phone buzzed again. Another message, police at gate want to return should they, Caleb typed. Yes, tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll be there, he stood. Give me your phone, he said to Nicole. She hugged it to her chest. Why? Because from this moment, he said, you do not call anyone without me hearing. She hesitated, eyes darting to the exit. Caleb raised a hand to the security guard by the door. Sir, he called politely. Could you help me with something? Nicole's shoulders dropped. She handed him the phone. He held it in his palm like a stone and then slipped it into his jacket. What are you going to do? She asked, voice small now. The anger was gone. In its place was something like fear. Caleb looked past her through the glass to where the elevator doors slid open and closed like breathing. He thought of his mother's whisper, don't be angry, be wise. He thought of the blue box in the safe. He thought of a promise on a balcony with the ocean in view. When he spoke, it was in that same careful voice he used when signing big contracts, the voice he used when everything had to be exact. I'm going to make sure my mother heals, he said. I'm going to make sure the truth is recorded. I'm going to make sure everyone who needs to know knows. He paused. And I'm going to make sure this never happens to any mother under my roof again. Nicole stared. Caleb, she whispered, tears finally gathering. Please, I love you, he nodded once. I loved you, he said, honest and simple. I loved who I thought you were. He looked down at his watch and then back at her. At 9 a.m. the police will take statements. At 10 a.m. I will meet my lawyers. At noon I will address my board. He slipped her phone deeper into his pocket. And before sunrise I will open my safe. Nicole's eyes flashed. You can't turn this into a show. She said, anger waking again. If you drag me, I drag you. I will say your mother has always hated me. I will say she tried to throw the pot. I will say I saved her. Caleb held up a hand and she went silent, not because he scared her but because something else did, his stillness. "You won't have to say anything," he said. "The camera already did." The nurse walked out then and said softly, "You can see her now, but only one at a time. Short visit, please." Caleb looked at Nicole. "Go," he said. "You first." Nicole blinked, surprised. "Me?" "Yes," Caleb said. "Sit by her bed, hold her hand, tell her you're sorry, mean it." Nicole stared at him as if he had spoken in a language she did not understand. "And if I do?" she asked. Caleb turned his face toward the nurse and gave a polite smile. "Then the police will meet you at the door on your way out," he said, still gentle. Nicole's mouth opened and closed. She stood, smoothed her nightgown with shaking hands, and walked toward the door the nurse held open. When the door closed behind Nicole, Caleb sat back down and pressed his palms together until the bones ached. He let his eyes fall shut. For a moment he saw a boy on a small balcony holding his mother's hand while promises filled the space like light. He opened his eyes and looked at the clock. The second hand moved. He stood and walked to the window that looked out over the dark parking lot, blue light from a security truck washing the pavement. He pulled out his phone and opened a message to Jonah. "In the morning, bring the blue box from the safe. Use the spare code 1970-90904. Don't tell anyone, come yourself." Jonah replied at once, "Yes, sir." Caleb slipped the phone away and stood very still. He could feel the shape of tomorrow forming around him like a suit being tailored in a single night. His mother's words beat like a soft drum in his chest. "Don't be angry. Be wise." He took a breath and let it out. The door opened. Nicole walked out slowly, eyes wet, face pale. "She wouldn't wake," she said. "I said sorry anyway." Caleb nodded, not trusting the shape of any words in his mouth. He stood. "My turn," he said, and moved to go in. The nurse touched his arm. "Sir," she said, "the officer at the desk asked for you. There's something you need to see." Caleb stopped. "What is it?" The nurse glanced toward the lobby. "They received a call from your house," she said. "Your head of security found another recording." She lowered her voice. "It's not just the kitchen. There's a video from the study, time-stamped 1 hour earlier." Caleb felt that cold crack inside him widen. He looked past the nurse to the waiting area where a uniformed officer stood with a tablet in hand. Screen paused on an image of Nicole leaning over Martha's wheelchair in the quiet of the study. An image taken before the water, before the scream, before the pot. The officer lifted the tablet slightly. "Sir," he said, "do you want to watch this now or do you want to see your mother first?" Caleb's eyes moved from the tablet to the door of his mother's room, then back again. He felt anger stand up inside him like a tall shadow, then sit back down when he remembered the whisper, "Be wise." He looked at Nicole, who stood very still, hands twisting together, lips pale. He looked at the tablet again. And with the whole world about to tilt, Caleb Reed made a choice. The hospital corridor hummed with machines and quiet footsteps. The air smelled of disinfectant and worry. Caleb stood still, his heart drumming slowly in his chest as the officer held the tablet toward him. The frozen image on the screen, Nicole leaning over his mother's wheelchair, was sharp enough to cut the air. The timestamp read 5:06 p.m., 1 hour before the boiling water incident. Caleb's hand moved on its own. "Play it," he said quietly. The officer tapped the screen. The video came to life. The angle was from the study's security camera, positioned high in the corner above the bookshelf. His mother sat in her chair, her shawl neatly folded across her legs, flipping through a worn photo album. The afternoon sunlight poured through the tall glass windows behind her. Nicole entered, her phone pressed to her ear. She laughed softly at first, but as she ended the call, her face changed, relaxed smile replaced by something colder. She closed the door behind her, the movement sharp and final. Caleb's jaw tightened as he watched her approach his mother. "Why did you come in here?" Martha's lips moved gently on the silent screen. Nicole said something too fast, her hands slicing the air. She pointed at the framed portrait on the wall, a younger Martha beside a teenage Caleb standing on a graduation stage, both smiling wide. Then Nicole stepped closer, bending near the wheelchair, her voice low but face hard. Martha's head turned away, her hand trembling slightly. Nicole grabbed the armrest. The video caught the sharpness of her movement. She leaned down, whispered something into Martha's ear, and then pointed toward the door. Martha shook her head firmly. Nicole's eyes narrowed. She pressed something into Martha's lap, a pen and a folder, the same folder Caleb had seen before, and when Martha refused again, Nicole snatched the pen away, slammed the folder shut, and stormed out of frame. The screen went black for 2 seconds, then the timestamp blinked forward. Nicole came back alone, phone again in hand, typing fast. She looked straight into the mirror across from the bookshelf and fixed her hair, expression cold, calculated. Then she left again. Caleb said nothing for a long while. His fingers clenched behind his back. The officer spoke gently. "Sir, we received this from your head of security 15 minutes ago. He said there are more files on the system and he's bringing them personally by dawn." Caleb nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said. "Please make sure these copies are kept safe. I'll come to the station at 9 as planned." The officer gave a respectful nod and stepped back. When the officer left, Caleb turned toward the glass window of the waiting room. Outside, the Lagos night stretched wide and restless. Cars glowed like red veins along the distant road. He pressed his forehead to the cool glass. Inside his chest, a war was happening, a quiet one between rage and restraint. He wanted to shout, to break something, to demand answers. But he heard again the echo of his mother's voice from the ambulance. "Don't be angry, be wise." Behind him, Nicole's voice trembled softly. "What was that about?" she asked. "What did they show you?" He turned halfway toward her. "Footage," he said, "from the study." Her face went pale. "Caleb, please, don't," he interrupted. "Not one word until morning." She folded her arms, tears glistening. "You're treating me like a criminal." Caleb met her eyes. "You poured boiling water on my mother. You lied about documents. What do you expect?" Nicole's voice broke. "You think I wanted this? You think I'm a monster?" He looked away. "I think I don't know who you are anymore." Morning crawled in slowly, the sky outside the hospital turning a grayish blue. Caleb hadn't slept. He sat beside his mother's bed, his hand resting lightly on hers. She was awake but weak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Son," she murmured, "you didn't rest." "I couldn't," he admitted. "You must keep your heart calm," she said, her voice soft but steady. "The devil wins when anger grows taller than wisdom." Caleb looked at her bandaged arms, the skin beneath red and swollen. "She hurt you, Mom," he said quietly. "You always told me to forgive, but this..." Martha smiled faintly. "Forgiveness doesn't mean silence. It means you seek justice with a clean heart, not a bitter one." Caleb blinked away tears. "You're still thinking of mercy after what she did." "She's lost, not evil," Martha whispered. "Lost people do cruel things when they think love is slipping away." He took a long breath. "I don't understand how someone could do that to you." "Because she never knew what it costs to love someone more than yourself," Martha said. "But she will learn." Her eyelids grew heavy. "When she does, do not destroy her, teach her." He held her hand until she drifted back to sleep. By 9 a.m., Caleb was back at the mansion in Lekki. The security gate opened slowly, the morning sun cutting sharp across the lawn. The house that once shimmered with laughter now felt hollow, every corner echoing with ghosts. Jonah waited by the front door, the blue security box in his hands and a laptop tucked under his arm. "Good morning, sir," Jonah said quietly. "Good morning," Caleb replied. "Show me." They went into the study. Jonah placed the laptop on the desk and opened several files labeled kitchen cam, study, corridor, and guest wing. He hesitated. "There's something else, sir." Around 3:45 p.m. before the argument in the study, Mrs. Reed was on the phone with someone for almost 10 minutes. The audio caught parts of it. "Play it," Caleb said. The video began Nicole packing the living room, her tone sharp, low, full of irritation. "You don't understand, Derek," she snapped into the phone. "He listens to that woman like she's a saint. I'm the wife, but she runs the house. The company is under her spell too. If I don't act, I'll end up begging for my own money." A pause, then laughter on the other end. Nicole smiled bitterly. Yes, I know, I just need her signature. After that, I can move the shares into the trust and handle things myself. He'll thank me later." Caleb froze, his stomach twisted. "Derek," he said quietly. Jonah nodded. "Yes, sir, that's the name mentioned several times. We traced the number. It belongs to Mr. Derek Okoye, your former project manager." Caleb's brows furrowed. Derek had been fired 3 months ago for mismanaging funds. Why would she call him? Jonah hesitated. "It seems they've been in contact for weeks." The sound in Caleb's ears turned into a heavy ringing. Betrayal was one thing, but conspiracy was something else. He closed the laptop gently. "Make 3 secure backups," he said. "One for my lawyer, one for me, one in the external vault. No one else sees them, understood?" "Yes, sir." Caleb turned toward the window. The gardener trimmed hedges outside, unaware that inside the walls an empire built on love was cracking apart. He walked toward the safe hidden behind a painting and entered the code, 1979-0904, his mother's birth year and his own birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside sat the blue metal box. He pulled it out and set it on the desk. Inside were old photos, papers, and a sealed brown envelope marked "For Caleb, open only when the fire comes." His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside lay a letter in his mother's handwriting, folded neatly and yellowing at the edges. He unfolded it slowly. "My son, if you are reading this, something has gone wrong between you and your wife. I felt it coming. The way she looks at you is not love, it is hunger, but I prayed she would change. If I am right, remember this, do not fight her with anger, you will lose yourself. Fight her with truth and let mercy be your sword. I have also enclosed the original documents for your company's shares, the ones you and I signed when it was just a dream. Keep them safe. They bear only your name and mine. If anyone ever tries to make you doubt your purpose, look back at where you came from. You are not just a man of oil and steel. You are a man of spirit and heart. Remember the bridge we dreamed of building across Makoko to connect our people to the city? When I am gone, promise me you will build it. It will remind you that real wealth is not in your mansion, but in what you give back. Your mother, Martha Reed. Caleb sat down slowly, the paper shaking in his hands. The words hit him harder than any shout could. Fight her with truth, mercy be your sword. He looked around the room, the photos, the luxury, the quiet, everything that once made him proud now felt heavy. He picked up his phone and called his lawyer, Mr. Akin. Meet me at the house, he said. Bring the company files, I'm initiating a change. Within an hour, the lawyer arrived, briefcase in hand, his suit pressed and eyes sharp. Caleb, what's going on? The police called about a domestic assault. Caleb exhaled slowly. It's true, Nicole attacked my mother. The lawyer's face went still. That's serious, are you pressing charges? Yes, Caleb said, but I want to do it legally and cleanly. No tabloids, no leaks. I'll handle the company side quietly. He handed the letter across the desk. This is my mother's note, she saw this coming. The lawyer read it, his brow furrowing. Wise woman, he murmured, what do you want me to do? Freeze all transfers related to Nicole, every trust, every share access. I'll meet with the board at noon. Done, the lawyer said, pulling out his tablet. And Akin, Caleb added, make sure we set up the Martha Reed Foundation officially by end of week. I want it to focus on injured mothers, disabled women, and single parents in Makoko. The funds will come from my personal account. The lawyer blinked. Are you sure you want to move that fast? Caleb looked toward the window where sunlight touched the orchids outside. Some fires don't wait, he said softly. At noon, Caleb walked into the boardroom at Reed Energy Holdings. The board members, men and women in polished suits, sat waiting. Phones buzzed silently as news already leaked about a family emergency involving the CEO. Caleb stood tall, his tone calm. I called this meeting to clarify one thing, he began. There are rumors circulating about domestic conflict. They are true but contained. My mother was attacked at home. She's stable. Legal steps are underway. This will not affect company operations. The room fell silent. A woman at the far end spoke carefully, and Mrs. Reed. She will no longer have access to any company holdings, Caleb said, effective immediately. Murmurs rippled around the table. Mr. Akin slid the signed freeze orders across to the CFO. Caleb continued, his voice steady. We built this company on integrity. If I cannot protect my own home with honesty, I have no business leading others. Going forward, Reed Energy will also fund a new corporate social responsibility arm, the Martha Reed Foundation. He paused, meeting each pair of eyes in the room. Our profits mean nothing if our humanity dies first. The board members nodded slowly, respect replacing curiosity. When the meeting ended, Caleb walked out into the sunlight, the weight in his chest a little lighter. But outside the building, a car waited. Nicole stepped out, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Cameras from a distance clicked faintly. Someone had tipped off a reporter. She walked straight toward him. Caleb, she said softly, we need to talk. He stopped at the car door. There's nothing left to talk about. Please, she said, reaching out. Just 5 minutes, no police, no lawyers, just us. He looked at her hand, then at the crowd of workers pretending not to watch. He nodded once. Inside the car, 5 minutes. They sat in silence for 10 seconds before she spoke. I saw the footage, she said quietly. Jonah sent me a message before he locked the servers. I know what it shows. Caleb stared out the window. Then you know why I can't look at you the same. Nicole leaned closer. I panicked, Caleb. I didn't mean to hurt her. I swear it wasn't about money, it was about you. I thought if your mother kept controlling everything, I would lose you. I wanted to prove I could handle things. I lost control. He turned his face toward her. You almost killed the woman who gave me life, he said. There's no control in that, only cruelty. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, please don't ruin me, don't send me to prison. I'll disappear quietly if you just let me go. Caleb's expression softened only slightly. Running away doesn't erase what you did. She swallowed. I'll sign anything, I'll give up everything, just don't let them take me away in handcuffs. He studied her face. Somewhere behind the fear, he saw the woman he once loved, the laughter, the warmth before greed crept in. For a moment his heart wavered, but then he remembered the burns on his mother's skin. The police are already on their way, he said softly. The only thing you can do now is tell the truth. Her eyes widened. Caleb, please. You said you loved me, he whispered. If that was ever true, prove it now by taking responsibility. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You're cruel. No, he said, voice breaking. I'm just finally honest. The knock on the window made both of them jump. The police officer from the hospital stood outside. Sir, we're ready, he said. Caleb opened the door slowly. Nicole grabbed his sleeve one last time. If I go down, you go down too, she hissed. The press will eat this alive. Caleb met her eyes, calm as water. Then let them. Maybe it's time the world sees what wealth hides. He nodded to the officer. Take her. They cuffed her gently, shielding her from the crowd, but the whispers spread anyway, through phones, through screens, through the city. That evening, Caleb sat by his mother's hospital bed again. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the walls gold. Martha opened her eyes slowly. She's gone, isn't she? She asked. Yes, Caleb said. She's in custody. Martha nodded faintly. And you? I did what I had to, he said, but it feels empty. Justice always feels lighter than anger, she whispered. That's how you know it's right. He smiled sadly. You were right about her. You saw the storm before I did. Martha's lips curved gently. I saw your heart, son. It was too trusting. I learned, he said quietly. Good, she whispered. Now learn to heal. He squeezed her hand. I'm starting the foundation you wanted, he said. The bridge project too. Her eyes brightened even through pain. Then I can rest easy when my time comes. Don't talk like that, he said quickly. She chuckled weakly. Every mother must one day leave her son, but I want to leave knowing you found your way back home to kindness. He nodded, tears filling his eyes. Outside the window, the night lights flickered across the lagoon. He felt peace for the first time in days, but peace has short legs in a world full of secrets. At 9:30 p.m., Jonah called. Sir, he said, voice uneasy. I just came from the police station. There's something you need to know. Caleb straightened. What is it? They questioned Mrs. Reed, Jonah said slowly. She mentioned a partner, someone who helped her draw up the fake documents. They think it's Mr. Derek Okoye, but here's the problem. Caleb frowned. What problem? Derek is missing, Jonah said. His apartment was cleared out last night. Neighbors said a black SUV picked him up around midnight. Caleb's grip on the phone tightened. Who picked him up? No one knows, Jonah said. But there's more. The files Nicole tried to create, they weren't just about company shares. There's evidence she and Derek transferred small amounts into offshore accounts over the last 3 months. Someone else might be involved. Caleb stood slowly, the peace in his chest replaced by that cold crack again. Send me everything you find, he said. Yes, sir. He hung up and turned toward the sleeping form of his mother. Be wise, he murmured. I'm trying, Mom. He looked out at the city glowing under the night sky. The story was far from over. The boiling water had only opened the first wound. There were deeper ones hidden under money, trust, and betrayal waiting to surface. He didn't know that. Even as he stood there, a message was arriving in his inbox from an unknown email with the subject line, "You don't know the half of it." And attached was a single photo, Nicole, Derek, and another man shaking hands at a hotel in Dubai 6 months ago. The caption read, "Everything started there." Caleb stared at the screen, his jaw tightening as the truth began to take a new shape, larger and darker. The night stretched long and heavy, pressing against the windows of the hospital like a living thing. The city lights flickered across the glass, and Caleb Reed sat alone in the visitor's chair, the faint beeping of machines keeping rhythm with his heartbeat. On his phone screen, the email stared back at him, its message as sharp as a blade. You don't know the half of it. Beneath the text was the photograph of Nicole, Derek Okoye, and another man whose face was half-shadowed by the hotel lights. Caleb zoomed in. The background showed the Royal Sands Hotel, Dubai, and the date stamp in the corner read April 7th, 6 months ago. His last trip there had been in April. That meant Nicole had gone behind his back then when she said she was visiting her cousin in Abuja. He rubbed his temples, the weight of exhaustion and betrayal sitting like stones on his chest. He wanted to wake his mother to tell her everything, but she was sleeping and her rest was fragile. He couldn't shatter it with more worry. Instead, he forwarded the email to Jonah and added a single line, "Find out who sent this," quietly. He set his phone down and stood, walking toward the window. The hospital's reflection stared back at him, his own tired eyes, his black suit wrinkled from sleepless nights, and the city behind him pulsing with indifferent life. He thought about how fast love could rot when greed watered its roots. He had given Nicole everything: comfort, security, status, yet she had chosen to trade it for deceit. As dawn approached, the nurse peeked into the room. "Sir, she's stable," she said softly. "We'll keep her another week for observation." "Thank you," Caleb said, his voice low. "I'll cover every bill." "She's lucky to have a son like you," the nurse said with a warm smile before leaving. He stood beside his mother's bed, brushing her hand gently. "You were right, Mom," he whispered. "Money doesn't buy loyalty, it just rents a mask." He leaned over, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Rest, I'll make things right." By morning, the city was alive again, horns blaring, hawkers calling, the smell of roasted corn and exhaust mixing in the air. Caleb stepped out of the hospital, his eyes covered by dark glasses. The world outside had already caught whispers of the scandal. A newspaper headline near the gate read, "Oil billionaire's wife arrested for assault." He ignored it. Let them talk. The truth would soon speak louder than rumors. Jonah's car pulled up by the curb, the driver stepping out to open the door. "Good morning, sir," Jonah said, looking weary. "I traced that anonymous email." Caleb slid into the back seat, and it came from a cyber cafe in Ikea. No name, no trace, but I checked the hotel staff list in Dubai from the same week the photo was taken. There's a pattern. Derek and Nicole met a man named Raymond Kane, a business consultant who used to work for Petro Global, the same company that tried to buy your shares last year. Caleb frowned. Petro Global, they offered a merger I refused. They wanted control of Reed Energy. Exactly, Jonah said. Raymond was their strategist. After the deal collapsed, he resigned. I think Nicole and Derek were working with him. The air inside the car grew heavy. So it wasn't just greed, Caleb said slowly, it was sabotage. Jonah nodded. We believe they plan to transfer your assets into offshore accounts, then sell them to Petro Global at half value. If your mother had signed the papers, they would have had legal control of the company. Caleb's jaw clenched, and when she refused, they tried to scare her, Jonah finished. Maybe Nicole didn't plan to burn her, but it turned into violence. Either way, it was never just an argument. Caleb looked out the window, the Lagos skyline sliding by. His chest felt hollow, but inside that hollow space something was forming, cold, sharp, determined. Jonah, he said quietly, set a meeting with Raymond Kane, use a private number, tell him Reed Energy wants to reopen merger talks. If he agrees to meet, I'll handle the rest. Jonah glanced at him through the mirror. Sir, you're not planning. I'm planning to finish this, Caleb said. That afternoon, the news spread faster. Social media buzzed with hashtags, billionaire scandal, Nicole Reed justice for Mama Martha. Some people defended Nicole, saying it was all a misunderstanding. Others cursed her name. But Caleb stayed silent. He didn't need to defend himself to strangers, he only needed to defend his mother's dignity. At noon, he returned home for the first time since the incident. The mansion was eerily quiet. The marble floor still bore faint stains from that terrible night. He walked through the corridors slowly, every echo of his footsteps reminding him how quickly a house could turn from a home into a battlefield. He paused in the kitchen doorway. The stove was spotless, the broken pot gone. Only a faint scorch mark on the tile remained, a black scar in a perfect kitchen. He stared at it for a long moment before whispering, "Never again." He moved into the study where his mother's chair still stood, empty. The photo album she had been flipping through lay half open on the desk. He sat down and turned the pages. There was him as a boy sitting on her lap, him at graduation smiling wide, then a blank page. He realized she had saved space, maybe for his wedding photos, maybe for grandchildren who never came. His throat tightened. As he closed the album, Jonah entered the room quietly. Sir, he said, Raymond Kane agreed to meet tomorrow 7 p.m. at the Eco Horizon Hotel. Caleb nodded. Good, keep it private. No mention of Nicole, he thinks it's about business. Yes, sir. Jonah, Caleb added, if something happens to me, you make sure my mother's foundation launches. Promise me. Jonah looked uneasy. Sir, don't talk like that. Promise, Caleb said firmly. Jonah nodded. I promise. Caleb stood and looked around the room again. Let's clean this house, he said softly, not just the floors, the memories too. The next day came fast. Caleb dressed in a simple navy suit, no tie. He looked more like a man preparing for war than business. Jonah drove him through the traffic, the hum of engines blending with the low rumble of thunder in the distance. The sky hung heavy with gray clouds. At the Eco Horizon Hotel, Caleb walked into the private lounge. Raymond Kane sat waiting, tall, slim, with slick-back hair and a gold watch flashing at his wrist. His smile was polite but false. Mr. Reed, he said, standing to shake hands. It's good to finally meet you again. I must say I didn't expect another call after last year's rejection. Caleb took the seat opposite him. Times change, he said coolly, and so do loyalties. Raymond's smile flickered. Loyalties. Caleb leaned forward slightly. You met with my wife and Derek Akoy 6 months ago in Dubai. The color drained from Raymond's face. I don't know what you're talking about, he said too quickly. Caleb pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward him, the photo from the email. You were careless, he said. Someone captured this. Now tell me, what were you three plotting in that hotel? Raymond swallowed hard. It wasn't what you think. Then what was it? Raymond shifted, his charm melting away. Fine, he said quietly. Yes, I met them. Nicole approached me. She said she wanted to protect your company from foreign takeovers. She claimed you were too emotional to handle business deals and she wanted to secure power before others took advantage. She wanted me to help her create a transfer structure. Derek managed the technical part. Caleb's eyes narrowed. And Petro Global. Raymond hesitated. They offered funding, yes, but only if she brought controlling shares. It was supposed to be legal, but when she couldn't get your signature, things got messy. I backed out. Convenient, Caleb said coldly. So you walked away and let her destroy my family. I didn't know she'd hurt your mother, Raymond said quickly. I wanted out when Derek said she was getting desperate. I swear Caleb raised a hand, cutting him off. Save your breath. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for evidence. Raymond looked confused. Evidence. Every document you touched, emails, bank transfers, recordings, send them to my lawyer by tonight. If you cooperate, you'll be treated as a witness. If not, Caleb leaned closer, his voice low, you'll go down with her. Raymond stared, realizing he was cornered. You can't threaten me. I don't have to, Caleb said calmly. You already threatened yourself by leaving a trail. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint roll of thunder outside. Finally, Raymond nodded. I'll send them. Caleb stood. Good, and if I were you, I'd leave the country before morning, because the people who funded this won't forgive failure. Raymond's eyes widened. You think they'll come after me? Caleb's lips curved slightly. They'll come after anyone they can't use, that includes you. He turned and walked out, leaving Raymond pale and trembling in the fading light. By nightfall, the rain started. Caleb sat in his car outside the hospital again, raindrops drumming softly on the windshield. His phone buzzed, a message from Raymond. Files sent to your lawyer, be careful, Petro Global isn't done. He leaned back, closing his eyes. It was almost over, but not yet. The rot was deeper than Nicole or Derek. Someone higher had orchestrated everything. He stepped out of the car and went inside to check on his mother. The nurses smiled as he entered. She's better today, one said. She even asked for her radio. He smiled faintly and walked into the room. Martha sat up slightly, her eyes brighter. My son, she whispered, you came. Always, he said. How are you feeling? Alive, she said softly, and grateful, that's enough. He sat beside her, taking her hand. Mom, he said quietly, what if the people who hurt us aren't done yet? Then don't fight them with hate, she said, fight them with truth. He smiled sadly. You always say that. Because it always works, she replied. Truth has a strange way of burning lies without burning you. He laughed softly, shaking his head. Even now, you're the strongest person I know. I had to be, she said, to raise you. They sat in silence for a while, the rain whispering against the window. Then Martha said quietly, there's something else I never told you. Caleb turned to her. What is it? She looked at him long and steady. Your father. He froze. Mom, you said he died before I was born. Her eyes glistened. I said what was easiest. The truth is harder. He left before you were born, but he didn't disappear. He lives in Abuja now. He was part of the group that helped start Reed Energy when you returned to Nigeria. Caleb blinked. You mean he's part of my company? Yes, she said softly. He invested under another name, Kane Petroleum. Caleb's breath caught. Kane, he whispered, as in Raymond Kane. Martha nodded weakly. Raymond is your half-brother. The room tilted for a moment. Caleb felt his heart drop into his stomach. No, he whispered, that's not possible. It is, she said. Your father had another family after me. When I saw that name in the papers years ago, I prayed it wasn't connected. But now I know fate doesn't hide forever. Caleb's mind raced. The betrayal, the deals, the sabotage, it all suddenly twisted into a darker pattern. Raymond wasn't just a rival, he was blood. And that meant the conspiracy wasn't just business, it was personal. He stood slowly, his voice trembling. So the man who tried to destroy me is my brother. Yes, Martha said gently, but remember, Caleb, blood can wound deeper than strangers. Don't fight him with hate, fight him with truth. He stared at her, torn between disbelief and fury. Mom, how can I forgive someone who tried to ruin us? She squeezed his hand, because forgiveness is what saves you from becoming him. He didn't answer, he couldn't. His thoughts were already racing toward what tomorrow would bring: the exposure, the confrontation, the reckoning. Outside, the rain turned heavier, streaking down the window like tears. Caleb stood by the glass, watching the blur of headlights on the street below. Behind him, his mother whispered softly, "Build the bridge, my son, before the fire consumes you too." He nodded without turning. "I will, Mom, but first I'll find out who lit it." As thunder rolled over the city, his phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. "If you want to know the truth about Kane, come alone, midnight, the old dockyard." He stared at the screen for a long moment, rain light flickering across his face. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "The fire isn't done burning." And he picked up his coat, ready to walk straight into the storm. Midnight was thick and wet, the kind of Lagos night that carried more silence than sound. The dockyard stretched before Caleb Reed like a graveyard of metal and fog. Rusted containers loomed in the shadows, cranes stood frozen against a bruised sky, and the lagoon wind whistled through the hollow spaces where ships once slept. Rain fell softly at first, then harder, slicking the concrete beneath his shoes. His headlights sliced through the mist as he pulled up beside a stack of containers marked Kane Petroleum. He killed the engine and stepped out, the cold air biting his skin. He had come alone, just as the message instructed, but he wasn't unprepared. In his pocket, his phone was already streaming a live feed to Jonah and his lawyer, Mr. Akin. If anything happened to him, every second would be recorded. He stood there for a full minute, scanning the shadows. "You wanted me here," he said into the dark. "I'm here." Footsteps echoed between the containers, slow, deliberate. A tall figure emerged from the fog, holding an umbrella. The face under it was one Caleb knew from the photograph, now sharper, more dangerous in real life: Raymond Kane. "So it's true," Caleb said, his voice steady. "You really did all this." Raymond smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have come alone, little brother." The words cut through the rain like electricity. Caleb froze. "What did you just call me?" Raymond stepped closer, the umbrella tilting back just enough to show his eyes, gray, the same shade Caleb had seen in the mirror his entire life. "You heard me," Raymond said softly. "You and I share the same blood, same father, different lives." Caleb's breath caught, but his anger held. "So this was your idea of a family reunion, destroying my company, hurting my mother?" Raymond's expression didn't change. "Your mother," he said with quiet venom, "was the reason I had nothing. My father spent his life trying to bury his mistakes, and you were his biggest secret. You got the name, you got the empire, I got the silence." Caleb's hands tightened into fists. "You could have come to me, you could have told me the truth." "I did," Raymond said, "through your wife." The rain grew heavier, hammering against metal. Caleb stared at him, disbelief turning to rage. "Nicole." Raymond nodded. "She didn't start it, I did. She was an opportunity I couldn't ignore. She hated your mother's control, I hated your father's shadow. We made a deal. She'd get power, I'd get revenge." Caleb shook his head slowly. "You used her." Raymond smiled. "No, Caleb, we used you." Lightning flashed across the sky, white and sharp. For a second, both brothers stood still, the same blood, two hearts poisoned by the same man's silence. Caleb stepped forward. "You almost killed my mother. For what? For a signature, for a name?" "For justice," Raymond snapped. "For balance. You lived like a prince while I built my empire from scraps. You inherited love, I inherited lies." "You could have built your own path," Caleb said, "but you chose hate." Raymond's eyes darkened. "Hate builds faster." Caleb took another step closer, the rain washing across his face. "Then let's end this, no more lies." Raymond exhaled slowly, then nodded toward a nearby container. "Come," he said, "let's finish it where it started." Caleb followed, cautious, every sense alert. Inside the container was a makeshift office, chairs, a metal desk, a generator humming softly. On the desk sat a folder. Raymond opened it and slid a set of documents across. "These are the original merger papers Nicole and Derek were supposed to sign. The money trail leads straight to Petro Global, but there's something else, your father's will." Caleb's pulse quickened. "What are you talking about?" Raymond smiled bitterly. "He died last year, didn't anyone tell you?" "No, of course not. His lawyers buried it. You were named sole heir, that's why Petro Global came after you, they knew. Your wife and I found out through one of his old accountants. We wanted what was ours." Caleb stared down at the papers. Rain drummed on the metal roof. "So all this was about inheritance." "About justice," Raymond repeated. "He left me nothing, not a coin, not even a name." "You think this makes it right?" Caleb asked. "You think burning everything makes the pain go away?" Raymond slammed his hand on the desk. "Don't preach to me about pain. You grew up with her love, I grew up with his guilt. He spent his life hiding you like a stain. You're the golden son who didn't even know he ruined another family." Caleb's jaw clenched. "Then your fight was with him, not with my mother." Raymond looked away, his anger flickering into something tired. "Maybe, but by the time I found out he was already gone, you were all that was left of him." They stood there in silence, the rain filling the space between them. Finally, Caleb spoke. "What do you want from me, Raymond?" Raymond's eyes flicked up hollow. "Forgiveness," he said quietly, "but I know I'll never get it, so I'll settle for truth." Caleb frowned. "Truth?" Raymond gestured to the folder. "The real reason your father built Reed Energy was not for business. It was to launder Petro Global's money through local subsidiaries. When you refused their merger, you threatened an entire chain of corruption that still runs through this city. They used me. Nicole was just a pawn. We were all pawns." Caleb's stomach twisted. "You're saying my company was built on blood money?" "Yes," Raymond said simply, "but you can change that. You can burn the rot out before they use you again." "And why tell me this now?" "Because they want you dead," Raymond said, voice low. "Petro Global doesn't forgive. You refused their buyout, ruined their network, and exposed their accounts. You think Nicole's arrest was the end? It was the beginning." Caleb's mind raced. "You're lying." Raymond sighed. "Check your car." Caleb turned sharply, his instincts kicking in. He rushed out of the container and ran to his car, rain splashing around his feet. The headlights flickered faintly. He crouched near the wheel and froze. Beneath the chassis, wired to the fuel line, was a small black device blinking red. "A bomb." For a second, the world went silent. Then he stood, eyes wide, chest heaving. He looked back at the container, but Raymond was gone. "Raymond," he shouted, his voice echoing across the dockyard. "Raymond." But there was only rain and fog. Within minutes, Jonah's car screeched into the lot, headlights cutting through the darkness. "Sir," Jonah shouted, running toward him, "are you all right?" "There's a bomb under the car," Caleb said, pointing. Jonah's eyes widened. "We need to call the police." "Not yet," Caleb said sharply. "We need proof first. Get the security feed from the dock's main gate. I want to know who entered before me." Jonah nodded, pulling out his phone. "On it." Caleb stood there, chest pounding, rain soaking his shirt. His mind flashed through every detail, Raymond's warning, the company, the will, the corruption. He realized now that this wasn't just family revenge, it was a corporate cover-up, and his mother had almost died because of it. Within 10 minutes, 2 security guards came running, one holding a tablet. "Sir, we pulled the footage." Caleb grabbed it and watched. The screen showed a black SUV entering the dockyard 30 minutes before his arrival. 2 men stepped out. One was Raymond, the other, Caleb froze, was wearing a Petro Global security badge. "They followed him," Caleb muttered. They planted it while he distracted me. Jonah looked up. Should we evacuate the area? Yes, Caleb said. Get everyone back. I'll handle this. He walked back toward the car slowly, the bomb's faint red light reflecting in his eyes. His thoughts were strangely calm. He remembered his mother's words again, don't be angry, be wise. He took out his phone and called the police bomb squad. They arrived within 15 minutes, their flashing lights painting the dockyard blue and red. Officers shouted orders, cleared the area, and began their careful work. Caleb stood under the rain the entire time, watching, silent. When the squad leader finally approached him, his expression was grim. You're lucky, he said. It was set to detonate remotely. Whoever placed it was waiting nearby. Caleb exhaled slowly. Did you find any fingerprints? Not yet, the officer said, but the design looks military grade, definitely not amateur work. Caleb nodded, his jaw tightening. Then this isn't over. By morning, the news had exploded across every channel. Attempted assassination of oil billionaire, screamed the headlines. Commentators speculated about corporate warfare, family betrayal, and greed, but while the city talked, Caleb moved quietly. At noon, he called a press conference. Cameras flashed as he stepped up to the podium, his black suit soaked with rain from the drive. The reporters murmured, expecting denial or defense. Instead, he spoke plainly. My name is Caleb Reed, he said. 2 nights ago, my mother was attacked. Yesterday, my wife was arrested. Last night, someone tried to kill me. The truth is painful, but I will not hide it anymore. Reed Energy was built with the help of investors who used my father's name for corruption. I was blind to it, but from today, that ends. The room went silent, cameras clicked. He continued, his voice strong. Every hidden deal, every shell company, every offshore account connected to Petro Global will be exposed. I will not protect criminals, family or not. My mother taught me that real wealth is not in what we keep, but what we fix. The applause started small, then grew. Some reporters shouted questions, but Caleb raised his hand. The Martha Reed Foundation will begin construction of the Makoko Bridge next month. It will connect the people who built me to the city that forgot them. That is my new legacy. He stepped away from the podium, flashes exploding behind him. Later that evening, he returned to the hospital. The moment he entered, his mother smiled weakly. I saw you on the news, she whispered. You looked like your father, but better. He laughed softly and took her hand. I told the truth, Mom. That's all I ever wanted, she said. You saved me, he said quietly, even when I didn't know it. She smiled faintly. That's what mothers do. For a while, neither spoke. Rain began to fall again outside, gentle and warm. The storm had passed, at least for now. Do you forgive her? Martha asked suddenly. He paused. Nicole. She nodded. He sighed. Part of me wants to hate her forever, but another part feels sorry for her. That's the part that will save you, Martha said softly. Forgive her, but never forget what the fire taught you. He smiled through the ache in his chest. I will, Mom. Weeks passed. Nicole was sentenced to 5 years in prison for assault and conspiracy to commit fraud. Derek Okoye was extradited from Ghana, where he had been hiding under a false name. Raymond Kane disappeared, though whispers said he fled to Morocco under another passport. Petro Global's CEO was forced to resign after an international investigation exposed their crimes. Through it all, Caleb rebuilt his world piece by piece. The Martha Reed Foundation broke ground on the Makoko Bridge project, hiring local workers, mothers, and widows to oversee the operations. News outlets that once painted him as scandalous now called him a reformer. On the day of the bridge's dedication, the sky was clear, the lagoon glimmering under the sun. Martha sat in her wheelchair near the edge of the platform, a shawl around her shoulders, her face peaceful. Caleb stood beside her, holding the microphone. When I was a boy, he said, my mother told me that success without compassion is just noise. I didn't understand her then, but now I do. This bridge isn't just concrete, it's a promise. A promise that no matter how far we rise, we will never forget where we came from. The crowd cheered, the ribbon was cut. As the first group crossed the bridge, Martha reached for her son's hand. You've done well, Caleb, she said softly. He smiled. You did better, Mom. She laughed quietly, the sound gentle as wind. Now I can rest. He turned to her, alarmed. Don't talk like that. But she only smiled, eyes soft, voice fatting like sunlight at dusk. When I'm gone, keep building bridges, not walls." Her hand went still. The crowd's cheers faded into silence. Caleb stood frozen, staring at her peaceful face as tears spilled down his cheeks. The funeral came a week later. The city turned out in thousands. From Makoko to Victoria Island, people lined the streets holding white flowers and banners that read, "Thank you, Mama Martha." Caleb walked behind the casket, silent, his mother's shawl folded in his hands. When he reached the graveside, he knelt and placed the shawl gently atop the coffin. "You were the bridge, Mom," he whispered. "Now I'll walk across it every day." The priest spoke softly, the choir sang. The wind carried their voices across the lagoon. As the final prayer ended, Caleb looked up at the horizon where the bridge stretched, sunlight glinting off its fresh paint. He smiled through his tears. The world had burned, but from the ashes something beautiful had risen. He turned to the cameras, to the crowd, to the future. "Let this story remind us," he said firmly, "that greed can destroy but love rebuilds, that forgiveness is not weakness, it's the strength to heal what hate could never fix, and that true wealth lives in the heart." The crowd clapped, the sound rolling like thunder, not the kind that destroys, but the kind that announces rain after drought. That night, Caleb stood alone on the bridge under the moonlight. The city glowed behind him. A soft breeze brushed his face. From somewhere far off, children laughed. He looked down at the water, seeing his reflection ripple and reform again and again. He whispered, "The fire didn't win, Mom, you did." Then he walked across the bridge, each step steady, each breath lighter than the last. Because at last, the billionaire had learned that forgiveness, not fortune, was the only true inheritance. Purple Heart, the end. Call to action, CTR. If this story touched your heart, type justice for Mama Martha in the comments to honor every mother who sacrificed in silence. Bouquet. Where are you watching from? Drop your city below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, because every view helps us tell more stories that heal hearts and open eyes. Red.